Processes and Systems, Chapter 7 is where our discussion starts today. And when we look at processes and systems, it's extremely important to understand that there are a number of components that make up this discussion: information governance, business process management, critical thinking, the ability to understand fact gathering, and then last but not least, Kaizen. And we'll go into detail on each one of these. When we're looking at defining the business processes and systems, let's look at the process first. And so let's give an example of a student in a process. The student goes to school, that's part of the process, or step one. Step two is they attend classes. The third step in this particular process, then they study and they complete homework or coursework. And as a result of that, the final step in this process, they acquire some knowledge, and then there's a grade that is assessed as a result of that. Now, let's take the example of the student a step further and start to then look at a system, which is obviously different from the process. This successful student has and operates in a system that has a quality subject content. It has administration that supports the organization and the system itself. There's a physical, emotional, and spiritual health that's necessary to thrive in the system. There's a personal commitment to learning that is made by the student and those participants in the system. Transportation is necessary to get from one point or point A to point B. There are student learning tools necessary, as well as teaching or instructional tools necessary to make the system work. And then there is a functional facility that allows or enables the student to operate fluidly. And last but not least, there's a healthy school nutrition or institution nutrition that's necessary here. So this takes a look at the working system for a particular student. Now, with that said, there is now information and governance or roles that are played within this particular framework. And so this information and governance has specific behaviors as roles is concerned. And within the processes, it's part of constructive information management and gathering. There's a string of activities that are designed to help meet the goal. The controls put in place help to manage conflict and hopefully build positive relationships. And then the metrics help us then measure what we're doing and our actual output as it relates to goal attainment. The business process has to be managed, and in doing so, it has to be defined in a way that we understand these models for success are important. There's an implementation component, so there we see implementation again, where we look at the resources that are designed to exceed the customer satisfaction level. We have to manage that work, as it alludes to in the title, and that becomes extremely important when we're looking at the resources we have and how do we create these successful workflow pathways. And then last but not least, we look to refine, or in this case, look to retool our assets and their outcomes to make sure that we're working toward the betterment of the entire organization. Critical thinking, as the fourth component, really takes on a different type of role. So when we look at critical thinking, we're looking at the approach, which should be open-minded if at all possible, should have some sequential activity with it, although the content doesn't have to be as predictable. There's a path that needs to be created, and then we test our conclusions. We incorporate the thought of everyone in critical thinking and put ourselves in a position to really build an opportunity. And that's the impetus for critical thinking in a huge way. And then we understand that it consistently evolves, so it is not static at all. And as a result of that, then we should be able to mitigate bias to some degree. We should also be able to cultivate a pattern for logic, which is important in critical thinking. We reassess the outcomes on a consistent basis, and we expose any assumptions that might occur. And then this allows us to then challenge resolution in an intelligent way and include communication within our structure. This means that we constantly will be in a pattern of improving. And that really kind of takes you A to Z with how you look at critical thinking within processes and systems. Now, fact gathering is a little bit different. And fact gathering is really done to try to get us to those decisions that we make. So on the left-hand side of this equation, we look to identify the challenge, the statement of need, the need analysis, the query and the solution decision process, and then what solutions are considered to finally come to our decision. And so let's use an example here that's a little different and talk about outgrowing office space. And so we've outgrown the office space. We need more space, which is part of the statement of need. We need to implement fact gathering, which is the need analysis. And then the query is based upon all the questions that we ask. How do we use this space? How will we operate in the space when it's available? What are the risks? What are the resources and tools and maintenance necessary? And then that allows us to build some solutions that we can consider to help us formulate and make that decision. And that's the key element here. It's fact gathering for decisions that's important. Last but not least, we look at Kaizen. So Kaizen, in a simplified term, is change for the better that is constant improvement. And with that, we're constantly going through fact finding and doing so through personal experience, not our observation, but more our experience. And that leads us to looking at this from a perspective of 5 S's. CRE, which is organization, CTON, which is orderliness, CISO, which is cleanliness, Siketsu, which is standards, and Shisuku, which is discipline. Those are the 5 elements that help make up Kaizen and where we should focus our change for the betterment within an organization and make sure we are constantly improving. Here's some definitions based upon those elements that we just spoke to that we think might be beneficial for you. Taking a look at understanding each one of these components and why it is important for us from a definition standpoint as we kind of build this matrix. And this is significant in processes and systems as it relates to organizational behavior and human relations. And then the last one, but not least, is Kaizen, taking those small steps to get constant improvement and incremental improvement. So what did we learn today? These elements help give us a framework for the processes and systems, and it's really founded on all the previous work we've done in this course to take a look at everything from the planning to the development of a plan from a leadership standpoint, to the implementation, to the principal skills necessary to be effective, to the environmental factors that influence this. Well, we have to go about it because it's in a workplace setting, about it through a systematic approach and understand the processes and how it works in order to effectively explain it to those people that are influenced by it. Here's our thought for the day. Stay motivated.